Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today is going to be 5 top tips for dealing with anxiety when out and about. So let's just get on into it. Dealing with anxiety when out in the world is often a really challenging thing, and it presents a lot of different symptoms for different people. So I've kind of come up with my top 5 tips of what helps me when I'm just out and I'm feeling anxious and there's not really a lot I can do about it. It's not a time for real meditation or mindfulness in the sense of practicing long exercises because I'm in a situation that maybe I just didn't expect to be anxious. Tip number 1, slow your breathing down. It sounds so obvious. I mean, I've done a whole video on breathing exercises, but just slow it down because you often don't even realize that you're perhaps holding your breath or your breath is starting just to speed up a little bit. So try and focus only on your breathing. That might mean tracing your fingers. As I said, you breathe in as you go up, hold, trace back down, and breathe out. Breathing, it helps, but it's the quickest thing you can do given any situation. Tip number 2, have a water bottle with you. I mean, it can be juice or whatever you prefer to drink, but having a water bottle provides some kind of distraction as well as giving you something to kind of do, meaning sip water, which again in turn helps your breathing. So it all ties together, but it is one of the easiest things you can have. Nobody can say no, you're not allowed water with you. It's a basic human need and a human right. So have a bottle of water with you. It gives you something to focus on, not just in terms of sipping water or breathing, but often I would trace the labels or look at the pattern on the bottle or even just read the labels. One of the things that I struggled with a lot when feeling very anxious was feeling the need to fidget, and a water bottle gave me that kind of excuse to fidget. So for example, on a Lucozade bottle, if you kind of trace your nail down the label, it creates an interesting little pattern. So you're effectively drawing and nobody notices that you're doing anything weird, so it's a good way to kind of keep things under wraps, but channel that anxious energy into something else, not just suppress it until you kind of explode. Tip number 3, go for a walk if you can. This is the thing that I struggled with a lot. I mean, my anxiety specifically is more like agoraphobia, so it's about being trapped, which usually means you're in a situation where you can't just get up and go for a walk. Walking helps to relieve the adrenaline that anxiety brings. So if you can, just get up and walk. Either go outside for a quick walk or walk in the room that you're in. There are different ways to kind of go about that. For example, if you're in an office, you could just go get yourself a drink, make yourself a drink, pop to the printer. The way that I try to stagger it in a workplace, or, I mean, school's a bit different, but so this is more specifically like uni or workplace, is you give yourself a reason that you need to get out of your seat. And then you stagger your time so that you have a valid reason for getting up, so you don't need to justify, oh, I'm walking around because I'm anxious. That for me was always the worst, and I assume that it's probably an issue for you too, because you don't want to have to justify yourself when you're feeling anxious, because people are like, why? Oh, well, I don't know why, it's just a situation. So walk with a reason if you can, go somewhere. I mean, it's pretty difficult because again, if you have a cafe on like school grounds or in the workplace, you can just go there. You can pop to the toilet. It depends really on your situation, but try and find reasons that you can walk and just walk it off. Tip number 4, talk about it. Talk to somebody, because addressing it usually just helps deal with it in the moment. If you don't want to necessarily talk about anxiety, talk about anything, but just speak. Again, that kind of helps with your breathing. Also, it's a distraction, so it focuses your mind, but talking about things definitely helps. I mean, you could even vocalize your anxiety as such, which might mean perhaps humming maybe, or making a little song and dance about it. I mean, it depends who you're with, how comfortable you're feeling in terms of just being as loud as you want to or as you're allowed to, but definitely talking, speaking, addressing the elephant in the room, it definitely helps. Tip number 5, distractions. This again goes over what I was saying about whether it's a water bottle or breathing or walking. Distract your mind. Often in university, again, I'd feel really anxious, and we usually had like a 1 hour lecture followed by 2 hours of working, and the 1 hour would just, it would almost kill me. But try and distract your mind from the feelings. So sitting and listening is something that it's really hard to kind of focus your mind just on listening. So try and do something. If there's a task that you need to do, focus on that. Break things down into small chunks so that you can focus on it, so it's not too daunting, and then you've got stress, and then that's what leads to anxiety. But try and distract your mind from what you're feeling. You might decide doodling is a good idea. A lot of people like to doodle. It could be, as I said, doing a task that you've got to do that usually is more applicable either in the workplace or if you have assignments to work on. You could also even start like jotting down how you're feeling. Focus your mind on something else entirely. That might even mean that just sitting still and not moving around or thinking too much, but mindfulness, again, super helpful sometimes. If you're in a room and you can't walk around, it's not really appropriate to start playing with your water bottle. You don't really know any breathing exercises. Just try and sit down and focus on one thing in that room and just pay attention to it. Look at it as if you've never seen it before and start describing it in your mind. That's a mindfulness technique that can work, and it focuses your mind, it empties everything else out, and it also means that your brain isn't really able to focus on what it's thinking is a threat. Remember, anxiety is a response to a threat, but if you are almost employing tunnel vision into something, then your brain can't really notice what it was worried about anymore. So focusing on something, distracting yourself, that's what helped me a lot throughout the years. I hope you found these 5 tips helpful. Let me know in the comments any other tips that you might have that have worked for you in the moment. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more like it. And I'll see you next time.